What's up, Earth Rockers? It's me, Shovatar. I'm back today to talk about a very special game. A game that a lot of people have a lot of very strong opinions on. A game that I personally have spent more time thinking about, more time agonizing over, more time trying to analyze my own opinion and work through my own opinion than perhaps any other game I've ever played in my entire life. This is Simon's Quest. This is the first Castlevania game. Well, okay, the first Castlevania game to feature non-linear gameplay was Vampire Killer for the MSX, but this is the first Castlevania game to feature non-linear gameplay that anyone's actually played. This game, like I may have already said, people have a lot of strong feelings about this game, and I should explain what's going on the screen before I start talking about the game itself in a larger context, because you're going to want to know what I'm doing. My goal, my plan for this run, is to beat the game in as few days as is comfortable, not really as few days as is possible, because I know for a fact that I could have done this run one day faster. But what I'm doing for the first day is I'm just farming hearts. I'm farming hearts so that I can buy the first whip upgrade in the first town before I go to the first mansion. If you don't know anything about Simon's Quest, hopefully what I just said should clue you in to some of the basic mechanics and some of its controversial facets. The fact that I'm farming currency to purchase an item is unheard of in this series prior to this point, and was unheard of in this series after this point for a very long time, until, of course, Symphony of the Night in 97, so you're looking at pretty much a 10-year gap, because I think Simon's Quest was 87. The title of this video is Simon's Quest a Bad Game? And what you're looking at on the screen here is sort of one of its first major problems, which is that it encourages, in my opinion, it encourages grinding. It encourages grinding because, I mean, I could clear the first mansion without the first whip upgrade, but if I'm planning out like an efficient route, I don't want to go all the way to the first mansion, then backtrack here to get the whip upgrade, then move on to the next mansion. And some people who really love this game may already be grinding their teeth at the mention of words like efficient route, plan. And they may be, and that's sort of the big, that's sort of like this philosophical difference that people have when they talk about this game, is to people who sing this game's praises doing what I'm doing, like autistically planning everything out for maximum efficiency and trying to get through the game quickly. I think to a lot of people who defend the game, I'm sort of working counter to the game's purpose and counter to the game's spirit, where Simon's Quest is a game where you wander around. It's an explore 'em up, I guess you could say. You wander around, you buy things. Whenever you happen to find the merchants, you maybe solve a puzzle if you can figure out what the solutions of the puzzles are, and I'll be talking about that. I'll be talking a lot about the puzzles in this game, because the puzzles in this game are probably the single most controversial aspect, but I just want to talk briefly about the overall style that I'm playing this game in, and how that in and of itself could potentially be seen as controversial or as not incongruous with how the game was quote-unquote meant to be played. And the result, unfortunately, of my desire for efficiency is this stretch right here where I'm doing nothing but killing zombies for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I think I'm going to spend the whole night doing this, and I'm pretty sure each in-game night is roughly 3 minutes, so I'll be shocked if anyone even gets past this part of the video, to be honest. But people watch some pretty horrible stuff on YouTube anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter. Here's the thing. So the day-night cycle in this game I should talk about that too. That's kind of... Jesus, can you guys hear that? Fucking assholes, sorry. People outside driving loud cars, they want everybody to hear how loud their car is. Yeah, so I want to farm hearts for the whole... So the holy water I actually do need for the first mansion. So I want to farm hearts before I go to the first mansion anyway, so that I can buy the white crystal and the holy water. And I think my logic was, as long as I'm farming hearts, I might as well just spend a whole day farming hearts to get the holy water and the white crystal and the whip upgrade all at once. So, like I said, concerns for efficiency led to that. The day-night cycle in this game is another thing that really strongly encouraged me to try to get through it optimally, because I did not want to have to spend any time waiting around for the sun to rise for merchants to become available, because there are points in the game where I would like to have certain whip upgrades, where I'd like to reach certain villages by certain days before I do certain things, so that way I don't get to a village that I want to buy something from just as night is falling and have to sit there and fucking wait for the sun to come up for the merchant to become available. So the day-night cycle is sort of what pushed me into trying to figure out an optimized route, not just in terms of optimized spatially, but optimized temporally, in that it's not just I want to visit these locations in this order because that makes the most spatial sense, but also I need to visit these locations in this order in this set period of time. And some people have, and normally a day-night cycle is something that I really don't appreciate in video games. Oblivion is a game that has a day-night cycle that's much, much more forgiving than this one. In this game, the day lasts for 3 minutes, the night lasts for 3 minutes. And when the timer hits, that's just happening. And here, that platform, that floating up and down blue platform, that's why I need the white crystal. If you equip the right crystal, it lets you see that floating platform. How would you know that? I don't know. I really don't know. Well, how about this? Shovatar, how do you know that? How did you figure that out? Well, I figured it out by accident. Actually, I spoiled most of the puzzles in this game for myself, and I guess now I gotta talk about the puzzles, via the following sequence. I would get a new item. The game would not tell me what the item did. I would say, I'm just going to look up what this item does. I would look up the item, and then upon looking up the item, I would learn that the item is in fact a single-use contextual item that is used to solve one puzzle in the game. Or in some cases, 2 puzzles. So, I didn't deliberately look up a walkthrough to figure out this game, but some of the games... A lot of the game's puzzles I ended up solving, like, by accident, pretty much. Because I'd get the white crystal, I'm like, oh, what's this white crystal do? And I'd look it up, and it'd say, oh, you need the white crystal to see the platform to get into the first mansion. I'd say, oh, shit, okay, well, fuck. I didn't really mean to do that, but that's how it is. And some of the other puzzles in the game, I knew the solution to anyway, because of pure cultural osmosis. The most infamous ones, which I'll be talking about more when we get to, such as the infamous kneeling by the cliff with the red crystal that the angry video game nerd founded his career on, and other similar puzzles like that. And here is a... Oh yeah, I should explain what the fuck is going on. Sorry, there's so much to like talk about that I just like... You now possess Dracula's rib. I'm going like so fast, and there's so much to talk about with this game. I gotta speed it up. Okay, so the way that so in Simon's Quest, 5 mansions, 5 pieces of Dracula's body. What do you do in the mansions? Do you fight a boss? No, you only fight one boss in the second to last or the last mansion. I don't exactly remember. What do you do in all the other mansions? You destroy the piece of Dracula's body. How do you destroy it? You get an oak stake. How do you get an oak stake? You buy an oak stake from a merchant who is inside the mansion. They're single use. You gotta buy 1 oak stake for each mansion. That's how it works. That's what was going on there. Fortunately, the day-night cycle does not progress if you're inside a mansion. Step inside one of these mansions and the sun and the moon stand still. So if you don't have the hearts for an oak stake when you go into the mansion, or by the time you can just farm up the hearts for it before you leave. And if I was purely concerned about in-game days, I would maybe even think about farming hearts inside of mansions, rather than let the in-game clock progress. Rather than like use nights to farm, anyway. The reason I don't farm hearts in mansions is number one, out of like real-time concerns, where I think it would be faster to farm hearts in villages and certain farming spots, and number two, because it's safer to farm in villages because you're just farming zombies that are running at you, whereas in mansions, none of the combat in Simon's Quest is ever particularly challenging. But if you're trying to farm enemies, if I'm going to farm enemies in the same spot, I just want the smallest margin of error possible. So I'd rather just walk back and forth in a village. It's faster, it's more convenient, it's easier, it's less risky, it's everything I want. Here we are in the second town that I'll be completely bypassing. Full disclosure, it's been a long time since I collected this footage. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm killing time here, because I want to farm hearts for the second night. Yep. See, so that's a great example. If I really wanted to, what I could have done there was farm hearts inside of the mansion, so that way I could get to this village with enough hearts to buy the next whip upgrade. I don't do that because I want to use this night. I don't do that because I don't think I've found like a farming spot in the mansion that I liked, and because the margin of basically I wasn't sure if I would get to the village before the sun went down. Because I mean, it might have looked like a lot of time there between me getting to the village and night coming, but I'm pretty sure if you watch it back, it's going to be like under 20 seconds. So in my preparation for this, and like my planning out, I wasn't really sure if I would get to this village in time, and I didn't want to spend a bunch of time farming hearts inside the first mansion only to get to this village too late and for night to fall, and for me to now have nothing to do and have to try to go to the next mansion without the next whip upgrade. So I just decided to, even though it was possible that I might get to this village before the second night, I decided that I would just play as if that was not going to happen. So that way, in case it did happen, it wouldn't be a problem. Because if I had farmed hearts already, then all the time I'd be spending here would be at night would be just useless. But I'd rather spend basically every night. I think of every night as inevitable, and every night as an opportunity for me to farm hearts. So that's why I farm hearts at night and not in mansion, and that's why, even though I technically got to this town on time, I'm still playing as if I didn't. I hope that makes sense. I hope the words coming out of my mouth are forming coherent sentences. So this gives me an opportunity to talk about the puzzles, which is what I said I was going to do. One of the biggest points of contention with Simon's Quest is it reasonable for a player with no outside help to solve the puzzles in Simon's Quest? I have seen lots of arguments about this subject. There are people who say the answer is no, it is not, and in fact the obtuseness of the puzzles was a scheme to sell strategy guides. I don't know if that's necessarily true. That seems a little bit like conspiratorial to me. I think just because a lot of older games just have obtuse design in general, where it's like this made sense to the game developers and they weren't concerned about crystal clear conveyance to every possible video game player. So I think the idea that they were nefariously making the puzzles hard on purpose to get people to buy strategy guides is a little ridiculous. Another explanation of the puzzles that I've heard, and their difficulty in figuring it out, is people will say, well, you're not supposed to figure them out with no outside help. You're supposed to, talk to people in the cafeteria. You're supposed to, ask your friends. You're supposed to spend, 6 hours wandering around trying everything and seeing if something works. That's how they're supposed to be solved. So, and then there are people who say, well, just read the clues, idiot. Just talk to everybody and read the clues. I haven't, now, Now, to be fair, I haven't talked to everybody. I haven't talked to every NPC in the game. But the NPCs that I did talk to mostly seemed to say things that either didn't make sense, or they would talk about, like, laurels and garlic. So the villagers are cryptic in the English version of Simon's Quest, and actually in the Japanese version of Simon's Quest, the villagers lie to you. So the villagers are not really helpful. The way that you're supposed to get help figuring out the puzzles is with... I don't even know if you're going to see any in this run, because I don't think I bother looking at them. In every mansion, there are hidden clues in walls. There are breakable walls you can break with the holy water, and inside some of these walls are these little books. Walk into the book and a little clue pops up. Problem with that is that if you press any button while the text is scrolling, so like if you walk into the book and then you accidentally keep holding whatever directional key you were pressing to walk into it, the text box will immediately disappear. And you can't see the clue again. You can't go back and look at it again. So it's entirely possible to accidentally completely miss what could be potentially vital clues. And the clues are not super helpful either. I mean, they're also pretty cryptic, although they are, I think, closer to giving you information about the actual solutions of the game than anything else. And here is, I think, the only optional item that I get. There's lots of optional weapons, like sub-weapons, that you can get in Simon's Quest. This is the only one that I want, because it basically does everything that the Holy Water does, but better. It does more damage, it stuns things for longer. The only thing that it's not as good at is breaking walls, because it has a higher, because it costs, I believe it costs hearts. Yeah, no, I don't believe I know that it costs hearts. Yeah, hearts are both currency and ammunition in this game, which is a little bit, not for the Holy Water. The Holy Water is free, but the more powerful sub-weapons cost hearts to utilize. So even though I just got the Sacred Flame, you're not going to see me use the Sacred Flame until much later. Yeah, the puzzles... Oh, and the shield. So Dracula's rib is the shield that I have now. The shield is just up all the time. Is this... Oh god. I think this is the part of the run where I walk into, like, every wrong house, because I forget which house has the laurels in it. Yeah, okay, well, this part's gonna suck. So, apologies for this particular stretch. My plan here is to use my time passing through this village to buy some laurels. Laurels are items that give you temporary invincibility when you use them. But you can only carry 4 of them at a time, and they cost 50 hearts each to buy. And I want a bunch of laurels for a certain part of the game later on. But, oh, here's some helpful dialogue. Yeah, that doesn't, like, make any sense. Dracula's eye is one of the pieces of Dracula you get from one of the mansions, but it actually does, nothing. Well, okay, it doesn't do nothing, it does nothing useful. That I can remember, at least. Or is it Dracula's claw that's useless? Huh. Maybe Dracula's eye does do something, maybe it's another, like, contextual puzzle solution. I don't completely remember. Anyway, what I want to do in this town is I want to visit the church if I can, and then I think I'm going to spend the third night just getting to... Well, okay, this is what I really want. I want... Not the church. There's no church in this town. This is what I'm doing up here. I want the blue crystal, because after the white crystal, in the first mansion, it has no further use. And you can only carry 1 crystal at a time, and the blue crystal is what you need to get into the second mansion. So my goal coming to this is I want to get to this village and talk to that guy and buy some laurels before the third night. So, fortunately, all the time that I spent before walking into the wrong houses didn't cost me any in-game day-night cycle time, but it did make me look like what I am, which is a doofus, who can't remember which of the identical houses has the guy that he wants to talk to in it. There are other places to buy laurels, but this is just the place that made the most sense, because it's literally on the way out of the village, and I have the spare hearts to buy it, and more importantly, I'm not going to be able to buy the next whip upgrade, the Morning Star, until a fair bit later, when I will... I'll have the hearts for the Morning Star sort of naturally at that point. I think. I don't think I do any more heart farming. I think it was just farming for the Thorn Whip and then farming for the Chain Whip. And I don't think I'll have to do it again. So here I'm on my way to the second mansion. What was I talking about? Puzzles. The puzzles in this game. What's my verdict? Do I think that solving the puzzles in this game without any outside help, without any external guidance, is reasonable? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say not in a timely manner. And this is kind of why I have so much trouble evaluating this game, is... should I be thinking of this game as... let's imagine that it's 1987, and I'm 8 years old, and this is the one game that I'm going to play on my NES for the next, like, 4 months. And I have all the time in the world that I want to wander around, bonking my head into everything, trying every little thing. Here's one of the puzzles. You get the blue crystal, and you have to kneel by the lake until the screen scrolls down, and the lake reveals this hidden passageway. I don't think I would ever, in a million years, have figured that out. I only know about that through osmosis. I know about that because I've seen people argue about it on internet forums. I think that these things are kind of ridiculous. Now, there are some that are, like, a little bit more reasonable than that, but the kneeling with the crystal thing... the thing is, once you figure out the kneeling with the crystal in certain spots does something, then the infamous tornado puzzle makes slightly more sense, but not a whole lot more sense. My verdict is that I don't think it really... Okay, here's what's tripping me up. It's that thing that I was saying earlier, where how do I evaluate this game? Do I evaluate this game as in, it's 1987 and you have 4 months to throw holy water at every wall in the game and, like, fuck around with every item? Or do I evaluate this game the way that I've evaluated every other game that I've played, which is, it's 2022 or it's 2023, and I'm playing this game and I'd like to not spend 4 months playing this game because the moment-to-moment gameplay is not really super exciting. I don't know if you guys have, like, been paying attention to the combat so far in this game. It's really not that involved. And in a way that's good, because this is a game that's about, you know, where you have to... I mean, healing is technically even more scarce in Simon's Quest than it is in any other Castlevania game. There's no healing in these mansions, there's no healing items. You can only heal at churches or if you level up. So the fact that the combat is simplistic is sort of a necessity, but one of the other consequences of that is that it's not super exciting to play moment to moment. I now possess Dracula's heart. What's happening here? Oh, I'm just letting the text box sit there for a while. Okay. So Dracula's heart is what I'm gonna have to give. I'm gonna have to show Dracula's heart to the ferryman in a different part of the world, and he's gonna get me to the third mansion. And I think I'm probably gonna go right to that after this is over. We'll see. But anyway, I mean, how do I evaluate this game? How do I evaluate these elements that may have made more sense in a different in a different time, in a different place, in a different cultural context. Here's the thing. Like, I feel as if the fact that I even have to ask this question is a point against the game. Castlevania 1, Castlevania 3, at no point did I... Oh, this is funny. I think this is my one death coming up. Yeah, watch this. This is amazing. Incredible. Incredible. Absolutely fucking breathtaking. Because in no other game in the series do the bones that the skeletons throw leave behind, like, fiery residue. But in this game they do, and I had just, like, forgotten that fact. I was thinking, okay, he threw the bone, and now it's safe to jump. But oh no. Oh no, the bone is, I guess, full of explosives or something. Anyway, I played Castlevania 1, I played Castlevania 3, I played other games that came out in the late 80s. Castlevania 1, 1986, and at no point did I find myself asking, oh, well, you know, should I be thinking about this game in the context of its time, or should I be... No, I was just like, is this game good? Is this game fun? Do I enjoy playing this game? Do I enjoy beating this game? Do I enjoy learning this game? And I didn't have to think twice about it. With Simon's Quest, the fact that I have to do this, like, this tango around the ghost of video games past, I think in and of itself is a mark against the game. The fact that I'm sort of fumbling for excuses to make for it. And the reason that I'm fumbling for excuses is because this game is so strange and so like experimental compared to what the series was prior to this. Like, it's such an interesting decision to take the series in this different direction genre-wise. And here's what I want to be able to say. I want to be able to say to you all, listen, all of the bad reputation that Simon's Quest has gotten over the years is just from YouTubers and people and Zoomers who don't have any patience, who don't, you know, appreciate the journey and the soul and the artistry of Simon's Curse. This is a fantastic game, it's a hidden gem, and you should play it right now. That's what I want to be able to say. Because the game has this unique identity that's so interesting. And because it does kind of have a nice atmosphere. The music tracks, all 5 of them, are pretty good. Bloody Tears obviously is the big standout, and then I like Bloody Tears, and then I like the music that plays in the last mansion at the end when you get to Dracula's castle, which is going to be a little while from now. So there are things about this game that I like, and I want to be nicer to it, but it has these big problems that are just constantly looming in my mind, and that I can't get over. I can't pretend they're not there. I can't just say, oh, the game is fine if you just look up a walkthrough for all the puzzles. Right? Like, puzzles in games should be solvable. Do you know what I mean? Just like how challenges in video games should be beatable. So if the puzzles in the game, if my conclusion is that the puzzles in the game are too obtuse, too cryptic for the player to reasonably figure them out on their own, that has to be a gigantic mark against the game, because now the game no longer stands up on its own. Again, I did not have this problem with any other game in the series. Any of the classic Castlevania games? Never did this question begin to cross my mind. With Simon's Quest it does. And that's a symptom. Is this what I want the laurels for? No, okay. This water damages you. I guess I want the laurels for something else. I think what I want the laurels for is a part towards the very end of the game where you have to walk through a really long one of these. And you need a lot of laurels to get through it. I think that's what I'm saving up the laurels for. So here's the ferryman. I'm not going straight to the mansion. I'm going to swing by a town first so that I can get healed up before I go to the mansion. So it's going to be this weird thing where I'm going to go to the town and then go back to the boat, then leave the screen, then come back to the boat. Then it's going to look weird, but I'll explain. But it's the only way to make it work, because you have to... Oh, and I'm also here to pick up the red crystal, yeah. I want to get the red crystal, and I want to heal up at the church. And this is actually kind of tense, because if I don't get to the church before night falls, I just have to bite the bullet and turn around and just go to the mansion, because I don't want... The number one thing that I did not want to do in this run, the number one thing I was trying to avoid, was having to spend a night doing nothing. That was the absolute number one thing that this entire run was constructed around. I do not want to spend a night... I don't want to have to alt-tab for 3 minutes, because I need a red crystal at a town, and before I can do anything more, and that's sort of the whole point. But fortunately I make it to the church in time, so whatever risk there was of me dying in the third mansion is now pretty much gone. You know, if I was playing super advanced, I would be planning out my level ups too, because you get fully healed when you level up, but I'm not quite... I didn't quite reach that level of meticulous planning. So yeah, as you can see, I barely make it. Those like split head enemies are pretty interesting. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So the way that you get to the third mansion is you have to talk to the ferryman with Dracula's heart equipped. But he only takes you to the mansion if you equip the heart before you come onto the screen that he's a part of, and you have to talk to him from that side of the river. So, or no, you don't have to equip the heart off screen, but you have to come at him from this end. So that's why I just like got on the boat and off the boat and back on the boat. So now I'm going to the third mansion. I don't remember if this is the... Because here's the thing. There are technically 3 bosses in the game. I only said there were 1 before, but I have to explain that statement, which is that there are 3 bosses in Simon's Quest. There's the Grim Reaper, there's Camilla, and then there's Dracula. The reason I only said that there's 1 is because the Grim Reaper is completely skippable and doesn't, as far as I know, doesn't give you anything for killing him. Technically, you can walk right past, physically walk right past both the Grim Reaper and Camilla, but Camilla's not skippable because Camilla drops an item that you need to get into the last dungeon to kill Dracula. And then the Dracula boss fight at the end is like Holy Water stun-lockable. Technically Sacred Flame stun-lockable, but it functions the same as a Holy Water stun-lock. So really there's only 1 boss you have to actually like fight, and it's it's Camilla. And the boss fight is extremely easy. The lack of boss fights is something that people often cite as a problem with this game. I'm kind of 2 minds about that, because, like I said, healing in Simon's Quest is even more scarce than it is in regular Castlevania games. So having an actual like challenging boss fight at the end of every mansion, yeah, those demons are difficult because they're doing my favorite thing. When Castlevania enemies do, which is they just fucking walk at you, and they just fucking walk into you, so that and if you turn around to walk away from them, they'll shoot a fireball at you. You have to try to turn around to intercept, and then they just fucking jump on you. So that's great. That's really fun to just give the player absolutely no good options to deal with an attacking enemy. Really great. All the nuance of the game, all the reacting to attack patterns, maintaining careful distance. Nope, they just walk at you. They just walk at you. They just run right at you, and you have to just fucking deal with it. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there. That was not super relevant to what was happening at the present moment. Anyway, yeah, Camilla. The thing is that if Simon's Quest actually did have like challenging boss fights at the end of all these mansions, I kind of think that would make the game, like... I almost wonder if that would make... I mean, it would depend on how hard the bosses are. If we're talking, like Cyclops level hard, then I think that would be fine, where it's like, you can technically die to it, but if you can play the game, then you're gonna be fine. But if we're talking, like, Grim Reaper hard, like C1 or C3... Oh, there he is! There he is, look out! Look out, Simon! It's the pink Grim Reaper! He's out of the... he's gone. Okay. Yeah, I don't think he drops anything. I think I looked this up once. I now possess Dracula's eyeball. I think I looked up if the Grim Reaper gave you anything, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't. If I'm wrong, please make sure to leave a comment slamming me for spreading misinformation. Please report the video to YouTube. And don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell for more factual errors. Yeah, I haven't, like, fought the Grim Reaper. I don't know if the boss fight is hard or not. But what I'm saying is that if Simon's Quest had boss fights that, like, were as hard as actual, like, difficult boss fights, like, I don't know, what's a good example? Like the Rondo of Blood Werewolf, right? Like a Rondo level boss, then I think that would actually make the game too difficult. Because if you think about it logically, if you can only heal at churches, right, and you're not, like, autistically planning out your level ups, to strategically have your full heal ready before a boss, then you're now going all the way from the town, through the wilderness, through the mansion, through the boss fight, on the same health... Oh, this is what I wanted the laurel for. Right, yeah, this part. Because you have to walk upstairs into two enemies that just sit at the top of the fucking stairs. That's what I wanted it for. I'm clever man, Shovitar. Alright. Good. Then it would, like, be this whole stretch of time and this gigantic stretch of gameplay going off of the same life bar. So, and the thing about a game like this, any RPG, I think, any game where, like, you can kill enemies and get experience to level up, is I think you have to be very careful to not encourage grinding. Because I think if the game was too hard, if like let's say I was setting out to play this game deathless, right? Which I kind of was, but then I had that stupid death in the second mansion, and I was just like, fuck it, I don't care. I don't want to fucking play this game again. I'm just gonna like say it's a 1cc. Alright, that's good enough. Because the thing about Simon's Quest is that there actually are some platforming sections that I really just didn't want to, like... I'm just sick of it, man. Like, after everything that I went through playing all those classic Castlevania games, I'm just sick of being in the situation of I have to make this jump or else the run is over and the last 40 minutes of my life were completely wasted. Right? So that's why after I had that one death, I just decided, fuck it, I'll just be content with a 1cc. And fortunately, that turned out to be my only death, so maybe it took the pressure off and it prevented me from making future mistakes at the actual difficult platforming sections. Anyway, discouraging grinding. If the game was too hard, then I think that would create the temptation to grind. Where it's like, well, I can't beat this boss. It's too hard to go all the way through this long gauntlet of enemies and kill the boss. I'm just gonna grind. I'm just gonna grind until I have more health or more, you know, whatever. I don't actually know if leveling up in this game increases anything except for your health. Because I don't think there's, like, stats or anything. I think it's just your health. So, which is interesting note, actually. I think I'm going to use the last of this night to farm some hearts in preparation for going to the next town, which I think is the town that has the last buyable whip upgrade. There are 2 more whip upgrades after this one. There's the Morning Star and the Flame Whip, but you don't have to pay any money for the Flame Whip. You just get it. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna farm. Where am I? I assume I'm coming over here to farm hearts. It's the only reason I can think of for taking this like circuitous path. Yeah, I'm farming hearts outside the church, so that way when the day is up, I can get right in the church, use it immediately, and then be on my merry way to or am I AFK? Am I going AFK right now? Well, I'm doing the thing that I thought I was specifically building the route around not doing, which is spending a night doing nothing. Unfortunately. I feel like I'm alt-tabbing and looking something up right now. I feel like there's something that I forgot and that I'm using this opportunity to alt-tab and look it up. That's what this feels like right now, because I can't think of any reason why I would be spending this time farming hearts. Because I don't know if I have 250 hearts, so I have 222, okay, so I still could have taken the time to farm hearts there, but I just didn't. Huh, that's weird. I wonder why... I think I was looking something up. I think I was looking something up about the next, like, town, like, maybe, like, which house has the vendor in it, maybe? I think that's it. Look at these pink-ass houses, man. On the note of Simon's Quest's difficulty, which it's really not difficult. The only difficult parts are some jumping sections. I played, so this is kind of topical. There's a fan-made reimagining of Simon's Quest was recently. What is this now? Is this laurels? I think I'm buying some laurels here. Yeah, I am. Okay. Yeah, now I think I'm stocking up for the part I was talking about earlier with the long marsh. So there's a fan-made remake of Simon's Quest that came out, I think last month, like late last month. I think it's called Castlevania Chronicles. It's like Castlevania Chronicles Simon's Quest, or Castlevania Chronicles 2 Simon's Quest, or something. It's a complete, it's similar to Simon's Quest, in sort of the environments and the, basically just the outdoor environments, because they gave every mansion like its own theme, not just musical theme, but like visual theme. And they changed it so that it didn't have any RPG elements. It's just regular Castlevania gameplay, where you go from the one part of the map to the other, clearing out the mansions one at a time, and that includes boss fights. And in that fan game, they included like save points before every boss that like healed you to full. So that was like their solution for the health scarcity problem, and I think that would have been necessary. If you're curious to check out the remake, my advice to you would be to not play that remake until they patch the fishmen on the first bridge, because I don't know what they were thinking when they programmed them, but they're basically nonsense. But I don't want to talk too much about the remake. Actually, you know what? I'm going to say one more thing about the remake, because this really pissed me off. So this Castlevania 2 fan remake has boss fights. Every boss is really fucking hard, and every boss is hard for the same reason, which is that the bosses just fucking walk at you nonstop. Which is kind of what I was talking about before, where it's like you have to master this wonky slide move that they added to the game that gives you like limited invulnerability. So the bosses are designed very obnoxiously. The bosses are beatable. The bosses are like okay, except for the third boss. The third boss is not okay, and then the fishmen are not okay. But very, very annoying design on the bosses. It feels kind of like they. Anyway, to talk more about Simon's Quest, the actual 1987 game, not a fan remake. But I bring up the fan remake to make the point about health scarcity, and that when they added boss fights to the game, they did add this, oh, here it is, the infamous, kneel at the red crystals till the tornado comes. What the hell? What a shitload of fuck. How the fuck was I supposed to know to do that? What were they thinking? Yeah, I think I never would have figured that out. even if you gave me 6 months and I'm 8 years old and I have nothing to do but play Simon's Quest, well, actually, you know what? At that point in the game, you would have had to have done the blue crystal kneeling by the lake thing in order to get this far, so the idea that kneeling with the crystal at certain places could do something for you would have already been established. So maybe it's not... Okay, that's another thing about Simon's Quest that I think might actually be even more indefensible, or even less defensible perhaps, than the puzzles, is the invisible floors. The invisible, the trick floors. You know what? That's funny. The problem is not that they're invisible, the problem is that they are visible. The visible holes, I guess is what you could call them. It's the opposite of an invisible platform. It's a visible hole, where the only way to know if it's pass-throughable or not is to throw holy water on it. That just does not belong in the game. Am I lost? I think I'm lost. Yeah, that's another thing about Simon's Quest that I have to lay on as a pretty heavy criticism, is that all of the environments are very samey. One of the great things about Castlevania 1, what am I doing? Am I farming hearts? Yeah, I'm farming hearts, okay. Yeah, because I want to go buy an oak stake. See, if I'd spent that time outside the church earlier farming hearts, I would have hearts right now, and I wouldn't have had to do that. So, that's annoying, but oh well. Like, all the other NES Castlevania games had all these wonderfully distinct levels, but in Simon's Quest, everything kind of looks the same. Like, all the mansions look the same. A lot of the forest environments are just... It's not just the... I mean, the forests are, like, different colors, but, like, the layouts are repeated. Like, there's so many parts where it's like there's a staircase leading downward, and then there's, like, a normal forest path going straight ahead of you. It's so repetitive. So that's also, I think, a point against the game, is the fact that it kind of feels like you're in the same place the whole time, even though the color is slightly different. It almost makes me wonder if this game was made in, like, did they make this game super fast? Because Castlevania 1 was 86, this was 87. And the game is, like, so different, and all the environments are so different, I don't know. I love this. Invest in an oak stake. I love the Simon's Quest translation. It sucks that it made it made the clues more. Maybe I don't know. Actually, I actually don't know if the clues are more or less confusing in the original Japanese. I just don't know. But I do know that I like the Simon's Quest. I like the Simon's Quest translation. I think it's interesting. Well, I think it's funny, not interesting. Possess is always funny to me. Invest in an oak stake is funny to me. So even though one of the consequences was perhaps making the game more difficult to figure out, it adds a little thing that I like to call soul. And that's another element of Simon's Quest that... Simon's Quest might have more soul than any game I've ever played. If you don't know what soul is, it's a difficult concept to describe, because it's very... by its nature, it's a feeling rather than an objective attribute. How do I define soul? I guess the easiest way to define it would be to say that a game is soulful if it feels like it wasn't made by... Contrast it with soulless. You can probably imagine a soulless game. Think of, I don't know, Overwatch? Maybe those, like, new Super Mario Brothers games? Games that are made that are, like, super sanitized, that are super, like everything works fine, and it just feels like too clean and too like I said, it's hard to define. But everything in Simon's Quest, all of its flaws and all of its idiosyncrasies and all of its errors, make it what it is. And I got to admit, like, as much as I complain about the puzzles being obtuse, oh, this is funny, I accidentally created a second one of these guys. Yeah, here's the Flame Whip. Yeah, there's now 2 of those guys. Only supposed to be 1 guy there, but as you can see, the emulator's having a bit of a problem at the moment. I'm sorry, I mean the NES is having a bit of a problem at the moment. And, it accidentally duplicated him, but we're out of the woods now. That was pretty scary. I gotta admit, I mean, if you booted up Simon's Quest and you talk to a villager, and some random villager just said outright, "Oh, kneel at the cliff with the red crystal, and a tornado will come and take you to the town," that would be a little bit... That's not what the game was trying to do, because the game has all these lines about, like, Dracula's riddle, like the riddle of the curse. It wants you to, like... It wants you to use your brain. But the problem is that I don't know what part of your brain you would utilize to figure out that you're supposed to kneel with a crystal to make a lake dry up. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what part of your brain would make you think, if I show the ferryman Dracula's heart, he'll take me to the next mansion. I don't know. And you know what? Like, I'm just gonna be fair. It's possible that everything that I just complained about, that I said was, like, you know, unreasonable to figure out. Maybe I'm totally off base, and there actually is a villager somewhere in the game who explains that stuff. Like I said, I don't know. A lot of that stuff got spoiled for me, either through cultural osmosis, or because I accidentally looked up the solutions, without meaning to. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm not even qualified to give an opinion. You know, maybe I should just shut my mouth and never post this video. But I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna say the impression I get is that all these, like, single-use, extremely specific contextual puzzle pieces feel a little bit ridiculous. But the larger point that I'm making is that even though that is a complaint on the surface, it's also in a weird way what makes the game so interesting. I mean, would Simon's Quest be the same if it didn't have the part where you kneel by a cliff and a tornado comes? Would it be the same without What a Horrible Night to Have a Curse, without the day-night cycle? Absolutely not. Like, those things are iconic in their own right. You know what I mean? So if everything anybody ever complained about in the game was removed, I mean, I don't know. I think the day-night cycle is actually... The day-night cycle... I think I started to say this earlier. In Oblivion, Oblivion has a day-night cycle that I really disliked. Because there'd, like, only be merchants or trainers that only be available at certain times of the day. So you'd have to, like, wait. There's, like, a wait command in Oblivion. You can wait for a certain amount of time to pass. So you can, like, brute force it in Oblivion. You can, like, make it happen. In this game, you can't do that. But the day-night cycle is what prompted me to make, like, an efficient route. It's what prompted me to do something in the game that was actually, like, engaging after I'd already figured the game out, after I'd already beaten it. You know what I mean? So, even, like, the day-night cycle, which would normally annoy me, ends up creating this interesting framework to base subsequent runs of the game around. So it's like turning shit into gold in a certain way. And But a lot of other things like the repetitive environments. There's no defense for that, especially if the game is supposed to be like a mystical journey. It's supposed to be about like the atmosphere. Well, the atmosphere is somewhat undermined when every forest is laid out exactly the same, in my opinion. Oh yeah, you get your laurel bag refilled for free by this guy. So that's what I'm going to use to get back across the marshes after this mansion is over. I think, because there's a couple things you can do. You can go back across the marshes, or you can keep going to the left, I think, and then you end up back near the second town, if I'm remembering the layout of the world correctly. But I think I'm going to go back across the marshes, because I think that's the faster way to get to the last castle to get to where Dracula is. Because I now have all 5 pieces of Dracula. And brace yourselves, because here's the boss fight. Holy shit, look at that. It's a fucking mask. Spinning around. This is the one boss fight, and it's really not very hard, because he spins around in the circle, and then he does this, or she, I guess, and you just stand still with the shield to block the fireballs, and you just kind of wait until she's done doing this and she's calmed down, and then you start hitting her again. And that's the fight, so not super interesting. And I now possess, somehow, the magic cross. Somehow a cross made it into the game. I don't know what that's all about. I'm offended, and I'm going to complain about that. So, I don't know. I think boss fights. I think you could put boss fights in Simon's Quest, and I think it would be fine if the bosses had like I said, like Cyclops level difficulty. If they were, or like Rondo level, like easy on the easy end of like Rondo level difficulty. Like bosses with like clear patterns and like clear solutions to the patterns. I think that would be okay. I don't think you should have like, I don't know, like Igor Frankenstein from C1 level bosses in like Simon's Quest. And you certainly should not put in bosses that are as hard as the bosses in the Simon's Quest remake. Even though they do add save points and health, I think those bosses are kind of just obnoxiously designed. Again, I'm straying off topic, but the topic that I'm straying back onto now is Soul. Simon's Quest, perhaps thematically appropriately, that's 2 adverbs. Let me readjust that. Appropriately, Simon's Quest, a game about destroying a soulless vampire, does have a lot of soul, and it is unique. It does give you this experience that's not like anything else. And I actually did have fun. This is my autism flaring up. I actually did have fun figuring out and pulling off a sort of semi-optimized run-through of the game. Like, oh, I can use this time of the night for this. I can use this time to get this done. I can use these excess hearts that I have here to get these laurels here, so that I don't have to buy them somewhere else. Like, I enjoy that. I enjoy figuring that out. So I did have fun playing the game. It just has these problems. Oh, fun fact, by the way, about these firemen and their fireballs. If one of their fireballs lands right on top of you, and you're in one of those lower areas there on the path, and you like up against the wall, up against like a corner, so you can't get knocked back, they'll actually instantly kill you. They like crush you like an elevator or something. It doesn't happen there because I can get knocked back, but I think if I like, for some reason, like getting hit and then like you can't get knocked back, the game like doesn't know what to do and it just kills you, I guess. Obviously it doesn't happen there because this is a single death run that if I really wanted to, I could probably go back and do like a deathless run of this, but I'm already way past this game. And I don't really want to go back to it. And I think this is good enough, frankly. Because like the point of the run was really more about the time than about the death, and as long as I don't get a game over, dying doesn't lose me that much time. And even then, it was more about the in-game time than the in-world time than the game time. Although both were important to me. But anyway, yeah, I'm not really too bothered by that death, and I'm leaving it in because I think it was funny. You know, I wish every flying enemy was that easy to kill. Maybe Simon's Quest is too easy combat-wise, but like, I wish every flying enemy just had like clear patterns that they adhered to. Where it's like, I'm up here, now I'm going to be here, which means you have to hit me here to kill me, and then you will have succeeded. Wouldn't that be fucking wonderful? I don't really know why I'm healing here, because I don't think there's really much in the way of enemies between me and the end of the game. I guess maybe I just want to make sure, because the thing is that Dracula is stun-lockable, but if he breaks out of the stun lock, the Dracula fight in Simon's Quest is actually kind of bonkers, because he doesn't really have, like, attacks that he telegraphs that you then have to respond to. He just kind of shows up, and he's like a big ghost, and then he just kind of like spazzes out sometimes. And like flickers like all over the entire screen. Look at these fucking reflects there, that's crazy. Do I have a laurel? I'm using my last laurel here, sweet. See, I'm really glad I did that. Because if I'm gonna have a laurel, I should use it somewhere. And now I'm on my way to the last... And this is actually a part of the game that I think... It's, again, I like it conceptually. I don't really like how it's executed because everything looks the same. But this town, I think, is supposed to be like a deserted ghost town near the spot where Dracula's castle is, because there's only one person in this town. It's some old lady in one of the buildings, and I think she, like, says something creepy to you when you talk to her. I don't recall what she says, but it's like, it's something weird. And everybody there is dead, and this graveyard is called the Vlad Graveyard. So, oh, and here's the one enemy in the game that's actually like tricky to fight. The birds, of course it's the birds. Well, yeah, they do like a singular lunge down and like a second lunge, and you gotta catch them on the first one. So that's neat. And here we are on the long bridge. There's always a long bridge before you get to Dracula. The long bridge to Dracula's castle, which is really more like just another mansion. And, admittedly, finally looks different. It looks different. The thing is that there's no enemies in it, though. And I think that's I think that's because the Dracula fight, if you don't stunlock him, actually can be challenging, and he actually can hit you. Maybe even a lot, depending on how it goes. So, so I think that's probably the reason why there's no enemies here. And I remember that's one of the things that James Rolfe, or like, you know, his character, because actually, fun fact about James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, he actually likes this game. Even though it's like the game that he criticized really heavily that like made him famous, he actually likes Simon's Quest. Which I understand. Like, there are things about this game that I like too. I just can't really get behind some of the flaws. Even though I do think some of those flaws ultimately create like a charming composite. I do think that the game would be better with like more varied environments and puzzles that make more sense. In my opinion. And here's Dracula. He doesn't look really like Dracula, kind of looks like a big ghost. And this is how you kill him. You just dump Sacred Flame on him. Now, I think he's disappearing there because I think he's like trying to teleport, because like that's what his attack is, like he'll teleport around and like shoot some fireballs, but for some reason he can't like teleport away. I guess something's like hitting him as he's trying to do it, so that's just how it is. That's the end of Simon's Quest. This is the best ending, with more weird-ass translations. I think it uses a weird verb here. Consummated? Oh no, terminated. In one of the other endings, it says consummated. This is actually a really interesting, perhaps unintentional, character moment here that I really like. Where like character in Castlevania games, pretty sparse on the characterization, but it's like the fact that Simon is here kneeling before Dracula's grave, like he's praying for Dracula's soul, is like a really cool like touch. I think I actually really like it. It's very striking, and I'm serious. One of the best things about the game, probably. Anyway, Simon's Quest, very interesting game. Induce magic. Okay, this translation's even weirder than I remembered. Induce magic and happiness for those who walk on this land. Induce magic and happiness. Anyway, like I was saying, this was a really interesting game, lots of soul, fascinating experiment that took 10 years to pay off, and oh man, look at that, he's coming back. Of course he's coming back, and I'm coming back too. Goodbye.